The samurai warrior were outnumbered most of the time, but one samurai warrior was a match of 10 of their opponents, and each orochi is a match of 100, swift, strong, the truest masters of the katana. Their armor, a perfect balance of flexibility and strength. They are the finest warriors of the world has ever known. Every army needs a warrior whose specialty is victory, kensei, or known as the Sword Saint, the guardian of the samurai people. Every great ruler since the dawn of the samurai has trained as a Sword Saint, every one. The samurai were formidable, and their armor is the strongest of the samurai people, as their will. For an empire to rise, another must fall, forged to blood, steel, fortune, and conquest. The formation of the samurai. Welcome to another video by the Unknown Past. In today's video, I'll be focusing on the formation and the history of the samurai. Let's begin in the Yayoi and the Yamato periods of Japan, where many powerful clans across Japanese borders who claimed to be descended from the divine kami of spirits, which has risen to power by the 7th century AD. Japan saw a restructuring of its agriculture-based economy and government in favor of Chinese-inspired centralized authority, which they all pledged their allegiance. While many clans remained in existence, they became largely vassal states of the imperial family. The introduction of the Taiyugo reforms in the two code brought about a rigid class system, which was based on merit and loyalty, and of course honor, to the emperor. Therefore, this development of the ranking cap system included 30 different titles, and the top 6 of them held by aristocrats. Those who fell below this rank performed various roles within the government or contributed to the society throughout specialized skills, farming or labor. Moving on, the title samurai means to wait upon or to serve, and internationally, samurai was a class of people within the hierarchy which existed in the center of this hierarchical ladder system, giving them access to prominent positions which were well respected amongst their peers, and you could be offered potential high-class rewards. Furthermore, in this system, all subjects under control of the imperial house and the lands of which they lived were considered public property, as ability to privately owned land has been abolished. Citizens, which were ranked through 1 to 6, where they were provided from the kombuden, or a distributed field around 30 acres, and taxed 3% of their harvest during the high-end period. The aristocrats at court had to become rather isolated within the capital at this time. Members of upper class created many incredible works of literature and art, but the governance of the rural areas became frequently neglected. Shogun, or tax-exempt, privately owned land, were initially reserved from monasteries and shrines. However, shogun eventually became used as rewards and gifts of the imperial family, and their friends and officials. So much land was passed around that by the 11th century the imperial family court had run down on sources of tax revenues, and it lost its ability to pay their armies in order to protect their acquired lands and properties. Aristocrats' families who owned land began to hire members of the samurai class, providing them with the military training so they can defend their territory against criminals and rival clans. The skills of these noble warriors strengthened, and at times were sought out by the imperial court itself to push back the northern people and to put down rebellious throughout the kingdom. The strongest of these warriors were provided with the title Commander-in-Chief of the Expeditionary Force against the barbarians, or Shogun. Over time, These shogun gained influence and power, and the military commanders made most of the government decisions, while the emperor and his family were reduced to the de facto rulers and basically served a ceremonial place as a nation's figurehead. The strength of the shogun and the samurai were tested in the mid and the late 13th century when the Mongol Empire began a series of chaotic attacks and strikes against the Japanese borders. The shogun rulers of the Hojo clan, along with the allied families and the samurai's warriors, fought fiercely in battle, on horseback, with one spear in one hand and the other holding a sword, as is well known as a katana or a samurai sword. Their unconditional military tactics, combined with their destruction of Mongol war vessels by typhoons and thunderstorms, and the heavy amount of pressure in the waterbeds, helped secure the independence from the foreign khanates of mainland Asia. By the 14th century, the infamous samurai katana had been perfected just in time for the upcoming of the Warring States period. During these years of civil wars, Japan was divided into many states, all of them striving in competition to take control of the shogunate. Defending one's property from the imperials of the day required the services of the experienced and the expert of the samurai. And it was during this time when their power grew. Throughout the 16th century, clans clashed against the neighboring rivals, and the introduction of guns from Europe increased the level of danger and the destruction, giving long-term and short-term effects among the people of that era. The violent and tumultuous lives of the samurai during this period called for a world view that encouraged honor and bravery. The Bushido code and ritual suicides became the methods of the battle hardy warriors to establish a level of order to the chaotic times. The 8 virtues of Bushido, which included living a life which upheld righteousness, courage, compassion, respect, honesty, honor, and duty, and most importantly, self-control. As many sayings within time say that the biggest war is within yourself, which means doubt and much more. Failing to live up to those lofty expectations could mean losing respect and possibly looked down upon, as during that time, to look down upon as he will be called a coward due to the bringing of dishonor to his family name and himself. This was the worst of the worst crime of a samurai warrior, and those who failed to defend the daimyo, or who were going to be captured and tortured or even make fun of, following a battle frequency practiced seppuku or harakiri. These elaborate ceremonial suicides demanded a painful end, where the samurai warrior demonstrated his bravery and courage even in his last moments of his life by slicing or stabbing his belly, spilling his guts open upon himself, which is an act proved the warrior is willing to kill himself to restore his honor before death, not simply out of cowardice or an unwilling to face his enemies. Towards the end of the Warring States period, Hideyoshi had successfully unified Japan under a single authority. After assuming leadership, he established a number of new laws and reforms, one of which was abolish weapons for all except the samurai during the tumultuous years of war. Before his region, many young men of lower standards have risen up through the ranks as being trained as a warrior. However, Hideyoshi demanded that the samurai class become hereditary based once again, permanently eliminating entry of peasants or the working class. With the stable Japanese government now created, he set his sights on the 4 nations and attempted to use the samurai strength to overcome the Korean peninsula. The attempt proved unsuccessful. At the death of the great unifier, it was Tokugawa Ieyasu soon resigned supreme. Ieyasu officially ushered in the Tokugawa shogunate and the Edo period of Japan, which I remind you it lasted from early 1600s through the mid-19th century. During this era, the samurai became members of the ruling class and were also often daimyo in their own right. During peaceful times, the samurai performed duties of the state, frequently taking bureaucratic roles. Moreover, changes arrived once more in 1868 when the United States forced Japan to open its borders for trade and travel to foreigners. The samurai waged their final battles in the Bushido War, officially ending the rule of the shogun and placing authority in the hands of the Emperor Meiji, who reigned until 1912. Plus, in the days of his rule, he changed the Edo period laws of weapon enforcement, allowing anyone to join the ranks of his new Western-style army military. He also created laws which abolished the right of samurais to carry their katanas publicly, and rapidly and significantly reduced the power of feudal lords, thereby removing the status that samurais had held since the dawn of the samurai. Many descendants of samurais joined the army and the navy, becoming established military officials within Emperor Meiji's regime. Others became scholars, educators, and businessmen. As you know, today Japan likely has millions of people who are descendants from the samurai family, and many with samurai surnames, which hold significant meaning and positions in corporations, legal firms, and governmental office. Though these infamous Japanese warriors aren't seen walking the streets, such as Tokyo and much more, the samurai continues to intrigue people within Japan and outside borders like me. Paragons of virtue, exemplars of honor, beacons of integrity, and masters of warfare, the great warriors of the East. This is the great samurai warrior of Japan, which they are the most revered warriors of all time. I wrote this speech myself, and I hope you like it. We fight for honor, we fight for glory, we fight for freedom. Some fight for their children, some fight for their gods. But there's only one way to victory, which is self-control. You must maintain order in your ranks while destroying the enemy in front of you. Whatever we fight for, we fight in blood and sweat. I hope you enjoyed my poem, if you call it that, if you want. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment below, and subscribe if you're new around here. I shall see you next time.